Good morning, everyone joining us for this important discussion. My name is Sebastian Schäffer. I'm the director of the Institute for the Danube Region and Central Europe, and I'm very happy that we have the opportunity to discuss this very important topic, affirming European security in the Danube region, together with our partners from the Austro-French Center for Rapprochement in Europe and Creative from France. We have a very wonderful panel that will be introduced in a second by the Secretary General of the Austro-French Center for Rapprochement, Dietmar Schweißgut. But I have the pleasure to say a few words of welcome before we dive right into that discussion. I think that especially for a think tank like IDM that is working not only on but in the Danube region, this topic is of course something that is very close to our agenda. I, for instance, just returned from a trip to Kiev and Lviv. I could firsthand see what the security situation at the moment looks like in Ukraine. But earlier in April, we have been to Sarajevo. We have implemented a project in Belgrade. And so these are, of course, more or less the major hotspots, so to say, in the Danube region regarding the security situation at the moment. There's, of course, more. We will talk about this more and different aspects. There's probably not enough time to cover all of the important and necessary topics that we will have to deal with. Therefore, I will stop right here, but I will just say one more time, thank you very much for the cooperation in organizing this event. And let me do some quick and small advertisement. If you are in Vienna this afternoon, and if you then want to have a less serious and maybe less challenging topic than security, we are implementing later at 4 o'clock together with the Volkshochschule Wiener Orania something on the Danube region, which is the Donau Vision Song Contest. So we're going to listen to the songs of the Eurovision Song Contest from our region. But now, without further ado, Secretary General, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sebastian. Thank you very much also to the Institute for the Danube Region in Central Europe, which is playing a central role also in the discussion in Austria, but beyond, as Sebastian just explained, with its manifold activities in the region. I'm very happy that we can have this seminar today, which I think comes at a very critical time. And it also comes at a time when I think there is much more interest in the region, outside the region, than there was before. And we will focus on the strategy of the European Union for the Danube region, but obviously the discussion will not be limited to that. The strategy was adopted more than 14 years ago, in 2011. I remember the discussion we had at the time, since I was the Austrian permanent representative at the European Union. And it was a discussion where a number of colleagues at the time questioned the need for such a strategy. It was not obvious, but it fitted in sort of an overall feeling that regional strategies can play an important role to support the activities of the European Union. I think we have gone way beyond that. We are now at a situation where I think few could imagine that we could not have a strategy on the Danube region. And I think we will bring out some of the main features of the current discussion, which of course took a completely different turn after Russia's war of aggression against the Ukraine in February 2022. Ukraine is an important member of the strategy, and of course the security concerns which are linked to this aggression are not limited to Ukraine, they are not limited to the region, but they underline the pivotal importance of the region for European security more generally. So I'm very happy to have this discussion, which will feature a very eminent panel. Thank you, all of you, for joining. I will briefly introduce you before starting the discussion. I'm very happy to have Goran Beman, Ambassador at Large at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Bosnia and Herzegovina, who is joining us from Sarajevo. Bosnia and Herzegovina are currently the rotating chair of the EU strategy from January of this year. I'm also very happy to welcome Harald Stanzel. Ambassador Stanzel is the national coordinator of the EU and Alpine strategies and head of the Foreign Trade Department at the Austrian Federal Ministry in Vienna. And of course, Austria preceded Bosnia and Herzegovina in having the chair last year. A warm welcome also to Nadia Afanasieva, joining us from Kiev. She is director of the Ukrainian Institute for International Politics, but also representative of the Ukrainian National Coordination of the Danube Strategy. Ionela Cholan, research officer at the Wilfried Martens Center for European Studies, joining us from Brussels. A warm welcome to you as well. And finally, last but certainly not least, I'm very happy also to have Ulrich Buna from Eurocreative, our partner also for this and quite a number of other events. He's a research associate and an expert also on the region and a lot of other things related to European central political issues. I would like to start with Goran, because I think it will be interesting to hear how he sees the outlook for the region, the strategy, security issues from the point of view of the current chair. Warm welcome again, and Goran, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, it's my great honor and pleasure to address this video conference. I would like to thank the Institute for the Danube Region and Central Europe for hosting this event. We are witnessing times of security, economic, and social challenges. All these challenges and threats in parallel affect each other, causing consequences in all areas of life. These threats are not limited to a specific region or a continent. They have a global impact. Bosnia and Herzegovina, as you said, holds the presidency of the EU strategy for the Danube region from 1st January 2025 until 31st December 2025, taking over from Austria. The EUSDR, endorsed in June 2011 by the European Council, has been contributing to addressing common challenges Danube region countries face. Beyond the challenges, knowing no borders like pollution, climate change, unemployment, or lack of connectivity, numerous new challenges emerged in the past years. The global financial crisis, challenges caused by migration and demographic changes, the COVID-19 pandemic, the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, the impact of climate change to humans and nature and others. These crises have left deep marks on the Danube region and its citizens in different areas. The only way to overcome them is through intensive cooperation and constructive dialogue within the entire Danube region. One of the noteworthy features of the EUSDR is that the strategy brings together EU member states and EU accession countries, tackling issues of common interest on equal footing. Within the transformation processes in Europe, the process of EU enlargement has to gain stronger dynamics and reclaim its momentum. As the Vienna Danube Declaration from June 2024 states, history has shown that EU membership is a catalyst for overcoming regional conflicts, promoting reconciliation, strengthening regional cooperation and development, and accelerating internal, institutional, and economic reforms. The Russian Federation's war of aggression against Ukraine, a member state of the EUSDR, has led to major consequences for the Danube region, Europe, and the world. Since the beginning of the aggression, Ukraine has been dealing with bloodshed, civilian casualties, destruction of civilian infrastructure, humanitarian emergencies, and an enormous number of refugees. All these terrible consequences demand the need for solidarity and cooperation, both in the Danube region and beyond. All these challenges and global changes lead to major transformation within the Danube region and all of Europe. The 12 thematic EUSDR priority areas provide wide opportunities for cooperation in making this region a place of stability, security, and prosperity. During its presidency of the EUSDR, Bosnia and Herzegovina will build upon the remarkable achievements of previous EUSDR presidencies and drive forward cooperation in the Danube region for a better life for its citizens. Bosnia and Herzegovina declares speeding up the European integration process as a top priority during its chairmanship of the EUSDR. To avoid the spread of enlargement fatigue, disbelief, and lose of EU credibility, especially in the Western Balkans, given that the promise of the EU perspective was given to the people and countries in this region during the Thessaloniki summit already 21 years ago, the EU enlargement process must be revitalized. It's our obligation and responsibility to make every effort in bringing the EU enlargement process forward, inspiring it from becoming a multi-generational task. One effect of the slow European integration process is our young generation leaving the region. Brain drain, the widening skills gap, the population, youth unemployment, and the consequent demographic shifts, also in connection with the labor market shortage and the declining labor force, pose significant challenges within the Danube region. This is why youth, education skills, and labor market policies will continue to be in focus of Bosnia and Herzegovina's EUSDR presidency priorities. The young generation could also make steps toward completing the reconciliation process in the Western Balkan region. Thematic-wise, Bosnia and Herzegovina will focus on the following thematic priorities: security, civil protection and disaster preparedness, tourism and culture, connectivity and green transition, education, skills, and labor market. In relation to the area of security, besides police force cooperation, Bosnia and Herzegovina's presidency will especially contribute to the cooperation in areas of civil protection and disaster preparedness. On April 3rd this year, Mostar hosted a significant EUSDR cross-PA event on water management, emergency response, and disaster risk management. Organized under the Bosnian and Herzegovinian EUSDR presidency, this event gathered representatives from key institutions to discuss challenges, share solutions, and enhance cooperation in these critical areas. The next thematic priority will be tourism and culture. Bosnia and Herzegovina's presidency will continue promoting the Danube region as the major tourist destination with the rich natural and cultural sites and historical heritage. This includes green tourism as an inspiration for new tourist destinations, urban tourism connected with various festivals, ethno and gastro-tourism, the influence and social networks on the creation of tourist brands, etc. Another thematic priority is connectivity and green transition within the region, with a particular focus on digital and energy connectivity. One of the areas that it will be tackled under the thematic priority of the digitalization of business and public services as an instrument of improving the Danube region's efficiency, sustainability, and competitiveness. Another area that will be covered is green and digital skills in Danube region. Regarding education and labor market thematic priority, efforts will focus on enhancing the performance of education, training, and labor market system within the Danube region through targeted policies and closer cooperation with academia. Building on the European pillar of social rights, the aim is to create equal opportunities and provide access to quality and inclusive education, training and employment for all citizens within the region. During its presidency mandate, Bosnia and Herzegovina will spare no efforts to contribute with specific activities and proposals that may attract stakeholders to work on synergies in bringing the regional contribution to the SDG UN Agenda 2030. Also, Bosnia and Herzegovina will devote special attention to gender equality, strengthening the role of women in the Danube region and implementing UN SDGs in the Danube region as important cross-cutting issues. During its chairmanship, Bosnia and Herzegovina will pay special attention to the following institutional goals: stronger involvement of the EU Commission's DG NEAR and related line DGs in the implementation of the EUSDR, supporting the upcoming processes towards the new cohesion policy and further enhance the processes of embedding EUSDR into EU funding mechanism, thus laying the ground for availability of funding sources needed for the implementation of the EUSDR beyond 2027. And of course, exploring the opportunities arising from the new growth plan for the Western Balkans that can potentially contribute the accelerated implementation of the EUSDR. Being a member of the two macro-regional strategies, Bosnia and Herzegovina will work on future enhancing the cooperation between the EUSDR and the other three EU macro-regional strategies, especially since 5 EUSDR member states participate in the implementation of the EU strategy for the Adriatic Ionian region. Mutual cooperation, capacity building, knowledge transfer, and exchange of best practices will stand at the core of this endeavor. Furthermore, Bosnia and Herzegovina will enhance collaboration between EUSDR and other neighboring regions' relevant strategies, aiming to promote the regional implementation of UN SDGs, particularly the Southeast Europe 2030 strategy. Finally, during our presidency of the EUSDR, Bosnia and Herzegovina will have close cooperation also with some other regional organizations such as RCC, its Regional Cooperation Council with headquarters in Sarajevo. So I think for this moment it should be enough. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Goran. Thank you very much for this very comprehensive overview, which clearly shows the scope and the dimension of the EU strategy on the Danube region and the way it has developed over the years. You also, I think, made a clear link to the enlargement process, and I think this is something we will come back maybe in a bit more detail at a later stage in our discussion. I would like to now turn to Ambassador Stanzel. Austria held, as I said in my introduction, the presidency of the EUSDR last year. It had a motto which said, shaping transformation, creating opportunities, a prosperous, resilient and secure Danube region. It came at an important time, of course, following the crucial year of 2022. And I would like to ask Harald to give us a bit of an overview of how Austria sees the strategy as such, the way it focused on its development during its chairmanship during the last year, and maybe also the broader dimension of Austria's views on the region. Harald, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador Schweissgut. Looking back to the Austrian presidency, it obviously took place in a rather difficult context. Europe in general and the Danube region in particular is currently facing far-reaching systemic challenges. The geopolitical situation, demography, and also the economy. More than before, the European economies are in a difficult situation, even in a crisis mode. Competitiveness, economic resilience at stake, and the US tariffs are now threatening our economies and industries even more. Another huge challenge, and we've heard it already before, is of course the war in Ukraine, an EUSDR partner country. The war is now ongoing for more than 3 years. Russia's illegal war of aggression against Ukraine was the geopolitical context for the Austrian Danube presidency last year, as much as it is for Bosnia right now. And a couple of general remarks. We've never witnessed a period where our region was more under pressure than now, with systemic security threats, the destabilizing influence of Russia, disinformation, and also China's tackling the region with targeted infrastructure and investment projects in a very strategic and challenging way. At the same time, we know that Europe's security will be defined, at least very much defined, in the Danube region. In history, until today, it's always been at the crossroads of diverging geopolitical influence and rivalries. So close cooperation in the region, albeit diverse, is a geostrategic necessity. Against this background, it was clear that Austria's #1 priority during its EUSDR chairmanship was trying to contribute to stability and security in the region, providing a clear European perspective for the whole Danube region to enhance the EU integration of the Western Balkans and Eastern European EUSDR partners, and also against the background of the war to support the recovery and reconstruction of Ukraine to the extent possible for our platform in the Danube region. But also the economic resilience issue was high on the Austrian presidency agenda. Ambassador Bayman mentioned already the demography issue. Brain drain, skills, and concrete perspectives for the youth are huge challenges in the region. Bulgaria, for example, lost in a generation almost a quarter of its population. And according to a recent survey, 40% of the young people of Bosnia would leave the country if they could. So you can imagine that how much also the issue of demography, skills, and concrete perspectives for the youth were high on the agenda of Austria's presidency. I would like now to come in a couple of sentences also to the results and the number of achievements during last year's Austrian presidency. The political highlight for the presidency calendar was definitely the Danube Foreign Ministers meeting in June 2024, where ministers and deputy ministers of all the Danube countries came to Vienna, participated in a very rich and fruitful meeting. Also, the EU Commissioner was present in Vienna and the foreign ministries. An ambitious Vienna Danube Declaration was adopted, but also even more important, the ministers discussed also very concrete projects, for example, on EU solidarity lanes, helping Ukraine in the recovery process, but also on cross-border health services, how to do better in the future in this Danube region cooperation. We are proud also that we could, in a way, bring forward some new initiatives, also on the issue of internal security. For example, the ministers of the interior met in Luxembourg in late June last year, and they discussed how to develop further a more secure and resilient Danube region, obviously focusing on the internal security dimension of the Danube cooperation, trying to improve border control systems, enhancing cooperation between police and law enforcement agencies, but also tackling illegal migration and corruption and organized crime in the region. There was also a first meeting of the mayors of the Danube capital cities during the Austrian presidency, and also a Danube region speakers, so presidents of parliaments conference in March last year in Vienna, also contributing to a high-level debate on strengthening democracy resilience in the Danube region. Also, first one, a Danube region business summit in November in Vienna, focusing on the business opportunities and the private sector involvement, boosting economic cooperation, and also here again, on discussing how the Danube region can help in the reconstruction process of Ukraine, and how the Danube region companies can help and have their role and their contribution in this process. So we think that we were rather successful engaging the political level in our discussions. I think we tried to have a good legacy, handing it over to the ensuing presidency of Bosnia-Herzegovina. We are now really happy to see, and Ambassador Bayman, of course, mentioned it already, that a couple of the Austrian priorities have been taken up and taken forward by our Bosnian friends. And we, of course, are ready also to help them in the trio presidency format to bring them forward during their presidency. This would be my first set of remarks, and I may give back to you, Ambassador Schweißgut.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Stranzl. I think you gave an interesting perspective by putting also the Austrian chairmanship of last year in the broader geopolitical context, which of course has been aggravating since. And you mentioned obviously also the new concerns we have about United States policy in the new administration and how it could also impact on the overall security situation. You also mentioned, I think, very clearly following up on what Ambassador Bayman said in his previous remarks on the links to the enlargement process, and you also underlined quite a number of problems facing the region beyond the immediate exterior security concerns, from demography to internal security concerns and others. But you also stressed the importance of the linkages between the presidencies. You mentioned Bosnia and Herzegovina following up on Austria, as Austria did on previous presidencies. So the important thing, I think, is to look at this as a process which is not really steps isolated from each other. I would now turn to Nadia Afanasieva. I think Ukraine was the first non-EU country to ever hold the chair of the European Danube strategy. And of course, it did so at a time in 2022 when it faced the assault from Russia in February 22, which of course changed the whole security architecture of Europe, or destroyed it to us in a certain extent. So I would be interested to hear from Nadia not only how you coped with the presidency during this pivotal year, but how you see its impact on Ukraine, on the region, but also on an issue which was mentioned already by Harald, namely the focus on recovery and reconstruction, linked also to the priorities of the Danube strategy. Please, Nadia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dietmar, for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to this event. Indeed, when Ukraine started its presidency in November 2021, our main priorities were the economic sustainable development and green skills. And of course, the February 2022 crushed everything, all the plans and all the connections, but I can say that the main connection is still the strategy. The country from the strategies were one of the first countries who were very eager to support in the very critical situation where we have, especially for the first month. And if we are saying about these challenges during the presidency, of course, we remained at the same points. We remained with the same priorities, but the priorities changed inside of them. Because if we say about the skills, if we say about recovery, if we say about economic growth, we definitely need to think about people who will do this. People in Ukraine who will do this recovery, who will come back from the front line after the peace agreements. Hope very much it will be rather soon with all the guarantees we need for this. And also we need to think about integration of those people in the society and how we can cooperate and how we can be the integral society to recover ourselves. Without partnership, without cooperation, of course, this is not real possible, but at the same time, it depends very much on us how we will do it inside the country as well. So for us now, what we are really concentrating on, this is of course the integration process, and of course the screening processes. We are going through the chapters on the negotiation process to prepare for the negotiation process. Here I can say that we definitely, which is a big pleasure for me to say, that the civil society organizations such as my organization and others are very much involved in the process by chapters. So each chapter we do have the working group for preparation of the negotiation process, and we are supporting the government to be more involved in the process by the expert support and by thematic issues. And of course, you know, if we are again transferring to the Danube region, we definitely understand that some of the ministries which are dealing now with the chapters, they of course are taking the big advantage from the cooperation, from the previous cooperation within the Danube strategy. So those chapters which we are now reporting to the European Commission, they definitely are partially are already implemented due to the involvement of the ministries into the work of different priorities in the Danube region. Of course, we now can speak about not only about the economic issues and recovery, but one of the main challenges after the peace agreement will be definitely the ecological issue. And here I'm speaking about the Black Sea, of course, which is directly connected with the Danube River. And we all understand that there is a big tragedy there in sense of the ecological catastrophe, and this is one of the issues which we still do not really have the full picture, and it will probably be the bigger challenge than we expecting now. The same thing is with the geopolitical things. So we definitely, if we talk about the security in the region, we can definitely go beyond the Danube region. We definitely can tackle here the Baltic Sea region, because we are the northeast axis of the aggressors. And of course, we understand that here cooperation between two macro-regional strategies will be crucial in sense of the installing the clear security measures, clear procedures, how to protect all the EU due to this two, I can say, macro, like northeast axis from the east side of two macro-regional strategies. So probably this is the main points I wanted to say for now, but I will join for the discussion, of course, later. Thank you, Dietmar.
Thank you very much, Nadia. Thank you also very much for underlining those linkages, the extent to which the strategy can also support the accession process and the negotiations. I think that's an important point. Also, I think the regional interlinkages with other regional organizations, you mentioned the Baltic region there, I think that is very important. And I was also very much struck by the way you focused on the ecological damage done by the war. And that is, of course, increasing the dimension of this whole issue in the context, obviously, also of interregional cooperation. So thank you very much. I will now turn to Ionela Ciolan, who is joining us from Brussels. Romania obviously has been from the very beginning not only a supporter of the strategy, but also in a way a co-initiator and a very important member, also located at the very crucial geopolitical situation in the Balkans, but also bordering the Black Sea. So I would be interested to hear the perspective from Romania. Please, Nadia.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Indeed, as you mentioned, Romania is a co-initiator of the Danube strategy alongside Austria, and also it holds the biggest share of the Danube River basin, around 29%. So for us, the Danube always had an important element because it's also one of our borders. And personally, on a personal note here, I would add this. I'm one of those people who were born near to the Danube. So I'm coming from one of those cities who basically it's on the Danube, a small city neighboring Serbia. So I understand the importance of the river for everyday citizens. Now I try to add an extra dimension to what was already mentioned because we already had so many great ideas in the discussion. I will link, because we are speaking about this interconnecting links, I will link the Danube with the Black Sea. And since the start of the war in Ukraine, for Romanian strategic thinking, we see the Danube interlinked with the security in the Black Sea. Because as these geopolitics are developing in the region, we are seeing that the Danube is no longer just a river, it becomes a strategic artery at the heart of Europe's defense, trade, and energy resilience. And we are seeing that, at least from Romania's perspective, that in order to basically contain the growing threats from Russia and also these evolving global trade patterns, there will be a need for the countries in the region to, especially for Romania, to secure and modernize the Danube-Black Sea corridor. Because as we know that the Danube, it's the Turkish Straits are the two entrance points in the Black Sea. So there will be an interest in developing the Danube not only as a corridor for trade, but also as a corridor in increasing the security and deterrence of the southeastern part of the eastern flank of NATO, European Union. And here I would add another element which I believe that it's important to the discussion. It's that currently we are in this process of the European Commission is in a process of creating a strategic approach to the Black Sea. Will be an update to its Black Sea Synergy of 2008. And in this strategic approach, basically the European Commission wants to have a comprehensive, holistic outlook at the region. And in my opinion, when we are discussing this and when the decision makers in the Commission and the External Action Service will work on creating this Black Sea strategy, we have to take into account this link with the Danube, because there is no Black Sea strategy without having a Danube strategy. So we should make sure that we have this interconnectiveness, because in the past 3 years of war, we saw that one of the strategies of Russia for the region, for the Black Sea region, it's that it wants to come closer to the Danube's mouth, which basically it's the link between the Danube and the Black Sea, in order to expand its influence over Republic of Moldova and over Romania. And also it wants to expand its control over the navigation and the freedom of the Danube, not only in the Black Sea, but also blocking the Danube mouth through all this hybrid warfare. And here, as Nadia mentioned, throughout the past 3 years, there were several Russian attacks on the Ukrainian ports on the Danube, which also indirectly had security implications for Romania, because the Romanian airspace was violated so many times, and there were many incidents of parts of drones which were falling on the Romanian territory. So we have this on one side, we have the idea of freedom of navigation and making sure that the countries in the Black Sea, here I'm referring to Romania, but also Ukraine, Moldova indirectly, they still maintain their freedom of navigation and access. Then there is also the idea of the fact that there are a lot of hybrid warfare and hybrid threats. Then we know that during the war in Ukraine, there was the moment when Russia took control over the Snake Island in 2022, which is very close to both Romania and Ukraine. And if the Snake Island, the island per se, belongs to Ukraine, the underwater and part of the economic exclusive zone belongs to Romania. So then we have this overlapping issue of economic exclusive zones and adding on top the Crimea issue as well. If the Russia will maintain control of the Crimea, we have again these overlapping areas of demarcation between the exclusive zones, which of course have the direct implications on the economic security of both Ukraine and Moldova, on energy security, because on those areas there are a lot of gas reserves, and Romania is in this moment in the process of exploiting some of its gas reserves in the Black Sea, so the Neptune Deep. So we have many implications for also the European Union. And when we are seeing that the European Union now, it tries to build up its security and defense policy, and it wants to become a more, security actor, of course, we have to take into account that we are not speaking only about conventional security, we're also speaking about this holistic approach to security. So here I believe that there is a lot of ideas or ways for the European Union to engage more, even when we'll discuss about an update of the Danube strategy. And I would add another element, which I believe that is very important, and this also affects the other countries on the Danube area. It's societal resilience, and making sure that we are building this democratic shield that the European Union are saying. So basically fighting against foreign interference and destabilization campaigns in fake news, propaganda, and also destabilization campaigns in our electoral processes, because we had recently an issue in Romania, so we are still struggling with those effects. Then I would also want to add the economic perspective to the discussion from a Romanian point of view. So we have the port of Constanța, who was crucial in the past couple of years in supporting Ukraine with its grain shipment to the rest of the world, since most of the Ukrainian ports were basically occupied by Russia, were under attack by Russia, since Russia militarized the Black Sea. So the port of Constanța, which is linked by the Danube Black Sea Canal, has registered the fastest growth of all EU ports over the past 3 years. And it's also important that in the future, when we'll have all these discussions about making sure that the EU connects with Central Asia, because the European Union has also a strategy towards Central Asia, and all these discussions about the middle corridor and making sure that we are increasing the resilience self-reliance and energy independence of the EU from Russian gas sources by taking gas from the Caspian Sea or the Central Asian countries. Then we also have the discussion about the middle corridor. And one of the ideas in the middle corridor is that this Danube Black Sea Canal can help with this project, because the canal shortens the shipping routes from the Far East to Central Europe by 40 kilometers, which also makes it cost effective and a strategic asset for the future. Then I would also add the military relevance in connecting the Danube with the Black Sea. And we are discussing nowadays about military mobility projects and making sure that we are connecting the Black Sea with the Baltic Sea. Then, of course, we also have this Three Seas initiative, which basically connects with the Adriatic Sea. So making sure that we are strengthening the credibility and a defense and deterrence posture of the region. By doing that, of course, we also have to take into account that the Danube corridor can be a viable transport route for all these military projects if it will be developed in the future, because the Danube corridor, it's not only a trade route, but also can be a crucial component in the EU and NATO's Eastern security architecture. We have near to the Constanța port this American air base, Mihail Cogolnicianu, who now Romania wants to transform it into NATO's largest base in Europe on the Black Sea. So this proximity also creates synergies between the economic logistics and the military readiness that we'll have to prepare for the near future, which can also turn this area into a dual-use strategic hub. I would also add another element. It's that since last year, Russia is not a part anymore of the Danube Convention, which was signed in 1948, which basically were saying that military vessels belong to the riparian countries are prohibited from navigating beyond their national borders on the Danube without prior agreement with the other riparian states. But since Russia is not anymore part of the convention, there might also be an opportunity for the countries to think about how to use the Danube as military transit area, which can also strengthen the military mobility. So basically making sure that we can send, in case of conflict, we can send military support from Germany, for example, to Romania by the Danube, not only on land. And we know that NATO has already a logistic command at Ulm, which is situated along the Upper Danube. So there is a potential for this use in the future. And there is a strong interest from Romania for this dual use, both military but also civilian use, and strengthening the transit on the Danube. Of course, for that we'll have to have a modernization of the Danube and of more investment to increase its transport. In terms of energy, of course, the Danube also, it's an important emerging energy hub, especially for LNG and oil transit and renewables, together with the Constanța port on the Black Sea. So I will stop here, and I will give you the opportunity to ask more questions, because this is a very insightful discussion, and there are a lot of potential for how to connect the Danube with the Black Sea to develop the region, to increase the security of the countries which are referent to both of the areas, the Danube area and the Black Sea area. You are muted.
I'm very happy to see that you covered the broad ground, going quite a bit beyond the strategy, but rightly so. This is something, I think, which you started out by saying that the Danube is really a strategic artery of the region. Of course, it's something which cannot be seen in isolation. It's actually linked to the Black Sea, but you also went beyond that, rightly so. I think even expanding a bit the need to look at the broader regional interlinkage. And I think you also provided the link very clearly to concrete issues linked to external security, defense cooperation. And that is, of course, part of the geostrategic discussion we are having. And I think it links in very nicely when I turn over to Ulrich Buna from Eurocreative. France is obviously not a member of the EU Danube strategy, but it is a very important player in Europe with clear strategic interests also in the region. So I think it will be interesting to hear a bit of an outside perspective on the region, its importance for the European Union, for the European security architecture. And I'm interested to hear the views of Ulrich. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dietmar. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you to the Institute for Danube Region in Central Europe also for having me in this panel and this great discussion. So, like you said, Dietmar, I will try to sum up a little bit the interest of France with regards to the Danube region. So basically, I would say that like I guess many other countries, the war in Ukraine, the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia in 2022 was definitely a pivotal moment for France regarding the Danube region. Before that, I think it's fair to say that France didn't really have much of interest regarding the Danube regions, or at least very limited bilateral discussions with some countries. It basically, regarding East, it basically had what we call the Franco-German couple that was really cementing the French views over the region, but basically didn't go much further than the other nicer line. And so you could see, like, for instance, I won't cite everything, but like in 2003, sorry, just before the Iraqi war, our French president had very contempting words regarding the position of some Central European countries supporting the US in the Iraqi war. After that, when most of Central Europe entered, let's say, the EU in 2004 and 2007, France was also really contempting regarding the introduction of these countries, especially focusing specifically on, I would say, immigration, social dumping, which was definitely not the best lens or not the only lens to keep when getting back, let's say, the European family together. That being said, so the shift was really the Russian invasion in 2022. That's quite clear. First, it started, let's say, from a strategic point of view by having France handling, let's say, the Eagle mission, so the rapid response of NATO in Romania. So we have now 1,500 men deployed in Romania in order to ensure security of Romania, both on the Danube and on the Black Sea. So reinsurance, I would say. But more broadly, there was definitely a shift also in the discourse, or in the French discourse. We basically moved from not to humiliate Russia in 2022, from ensuring defeat of Russia in 2025. So this is what Emmanuel Macron said, and he also gave two other speeches, which are actually, I think, are the most enlightening in this shift of positioning from France. The first one was in Bratislava in 2023 at the end of the GlobSec Forum. and the second one was in Prague, Czech Republic, March last year. Basically, what Emmanuel Macron said. So first, he kind of closed the chapter of all these, let's say, not the best declarations that were made previously, but basically he also linked the security of all Europe to the security of Central Europe and the Danube region. He also emphasized that if France was wishing to implement, let's say, the European strategic autonomy, it was definitely linked and it needed the support of Central Europe. So this was definitely a tectonic shift, I would say. And so this is very important. And it also comes at a moment where, let's say, there is kind of a opportunistic momentum that is kind of opening regarding. So I think it was Goran who touched a little bit about this, but the shift and the crumbling of the transatlantic relationship, which was basically one of the core aspects of the security in Central Europe for most of the countries, is now, let's say, not so secure anymore. So France has an opportunity and can step up and propose what he has basically supported for many years, which is like Europe should be supporting its own defense in connection, of course, with the US, but still should be able to defend itself, and France can be a big part of it, especially because we are a P5 member and that we have, of course, the nuclear power. So there is kind of a momentum, and I think we could maybe do something with this. One of the illustration of this, also Poland, of course, is not part of the Danube region, but I mean, there will be the signing of a cooperation and friendship treaty this Friday in Nancy between France and Poland. This kind of treaties were only before that with Spain, Italy, and Germany. So it really shows that France is now willing to expand its treaties, alliances, treaties with countries in Central Europe. It shows also that these countries are now as important as old allies were, neighboring countries, were in the past. So that's very good. The only two limiting things I see here, it's first, well, let's say sometimes inconsistency in the positioning of France. One can talk about the interest and maybe the good timing of, for instance, having a lot of discussions and selling weapons to Alexander Vučić of Serbia. This definitely may parasite what France is trying to do with Central Europe and the Danube region. And second one, and I think Ionela touched about this, it's France should really set up a global strategy on the Danube region and on the Black Sea. We now have an ambassador on the Black Sea and the Eastern Partnership. So there is kind of a willingness to try to address this lack of strategy that we have so far in France. But I think this ambassador should definitely broaden his scope of work to take also into account the Danube region and try to propose actually a strategy that would encompass global security and also economic perspective. Ionela talked about middle corridor. This is part also of it. And so this is definitely what France should focus on, not only words, but also propose a strategy in cooperation with the countries in the region and try to, let's say, make words into deeds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ulrich, for this French perspective, and if I may say so, also a broader European perspective, and also linking this to the change in the overall geostrategic situation, where doubts about the solidity of the transatlantic relationship, of course, are first and foremost in our minds, and also I think having forced all of us, even those who have been a bit skeptical about the concepts of European strategic autonomy, on the need to focus on European strategies and needs. And maybe one doesn't need to go as far as Joschka Fischer in a recent comment when he said all Europeans have become goalist by now. But I think clearly the point he made was well understood. We have a bit less than half an hour left, and I would like to ask all of you to intervene in a second round for maybe 5 minutes each. And if I may, I would just set out sort of a few issues following up on the first round, like if some of you would like to focus a bit more clearly and on the way the Danube strategy can also support very concretely the accession process, because obviously we all understand that in a few years' time the Danube will be surrounded by riparian states which all belong to the European Union. Another point is, of course, and this was already mentioned in the first round, the need to focus on recovery and reconstruction in Ukraine. That is also something, I think, where it would be interesting to hear if there are concrete perspectives to what extent the Danube strategy and regional cooperation can support that, and also support resilience in all aspects. This has been come out in all your interventions in the first round, but I think if some of you would like to focus a bit more on that, that would also be interesting. And I was also wondering a bit, because it was mentioned, I think, in Harald's first intervention when he talked about, very briefly touched on the role of outside players. Russia, obviously, as an opponent with its hybrid warfare and its influence in the region, but China was mentioned, and of course Turkey is an important partner. So I think it would also be interesting to hear possibly how you see the role of outside partners in this regional cooperation. And finally, and I think Ulrich didn't quite mention it, but he went in this direction. We have this initiative developed by President Macron, but which has become now a European initiative on the European political community, which of course is something which brings together partners not only beyond the European Union, but also a bit beyond the region and more limited context. I think of Turkey, which is of course also an accession candidate, but a very special one, as we all know. So if I may, I would ask you to very briefly comment, and maybe also comment on previous interventions in the first round, and start again with Goran. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Well, the issue of security is interlinked with the issue of economy, demography, geostrategic interests, etc. So that's why we need to have a comprehensive approach. We should not view the enlargement of the EU only as a technical process, but I'm afraid that a lot of politicians are limited from this point of view. The enlargement process is a political process of geostrategic importance for the whole continent. So if we want to speak about security in Europe, in the same time we have to speak about economic progress, about social security, and of course about speeding up European integration process. And I have a feeling that we need much more solidarity, not only inside of the European Union, but in all European continent, because European Union is based on the values, not only on the economic interest. And I think that we all share the same values, and we have to fight for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gordon. Harald, what is your take?
Yes, I would like actually to come back for a second on the war of Ukraine, because this war reminded us on a couple of facts. We live in a world of geopolitics and great power competition more than ever before, and Europe's security will be defined in the Danube region, where global and regional powers are seeking influence. The more war moved also EU enlargement back higher onto the political agenda of Europe, and enlargement is the most effective geopolitical tool of European Union. So these are a bit, I think, a couple of facts, at least I would like to put forward. With the current process of enlargement, also the center of gravity of EU will certainly move towards east. Now we come more specifically on the role of EUSDR, the EU strategy for the Danube region, because this platform is certainly a kind of laboratory of accession for all the candidate countries, including Ukraine and Moldova, on their path towards European Union membership, and also on this way of gradual integration into European Union membership. So we all know there will be no big bang scenario on the membership of the new members in the east and southeast of Europe, but we have to really focus more than ever on this concept of gradual integration wherever we can take already some steps of integrating the partner countries. History has shown us also that the EU membership is a catalyst for overcoming also bilateral and regional conflicts. This has been already stressed. And in a more historical perspective, with this enlargement process, I think the Danube River has also the vocation to become a new or second river of European integration of Eastern and Southeastern Europe, as much as the River Rhine played this role some 60, 70 years ago. The Danube River is already now an important EU solidarity lane for Ukrainian grain exports and a lifeline for Ukraine's economy whenever Russia has blocked the Black Sea ports. And the Danube River and region will play a pivotal role in Ukraine's reconstruction as the foreign ministry is a coordinator for reconstruction, and having been in Kiev with a political and also business delegation of Austria a couple of weeks ago, also hear some takeaways from this visit and my experiences. We can take it that the Danube region will be of crucial logistic and infrastructural importance for this reconstruction process, and that rebuilding Ukraine, of course, is also very much in the interest of European security, but it's also the largest reconstruction program in Europe since World War II. I think also this is very important, and to see here the investment needs, but also the unprecedented business and growth opportunities for European companies and business. And obviously, we as members of the Danube strategy of the Danube region, we are in a kind of excellent strategic position, a privileged position geographically and also through our common history. So our countries can be and hopefully will be at the forefront if we get involved at an early stage by expanding the economic relations and taking part in the ongoing immediate reconstruction efforts. I think I'll stop here and give back to you, Dietmar.
Thank you very much, Harald. I think that were a number of very important points which showed very clearly to what extent the Danube strategy, cooperation in this region, can very concretely contribute to one of the main concerns we have, namely reconstruction in the Ukraine. You also, I think, very clearly underlined the link to the accession process. I very much liked your wording when you said that the Danube strategy is a laboratory for the accession process. And of course, what you underlined by calling for the concept of gradual accession is important, and it should not be misunderstood for slowing down the process. It's quite the opposite. Nadia, I think you would like to follow up on this, please.
Thank you, Dietmar. Yeah, indeed. I definitely would like to continue some thoughts about the accession process, which is now on the high topic, I would say, in Ukraine. And we mainly were speaking here about the national level of the accession. Of course, this is important because it's all done. The negotiation process is done on the national level. But if we go a bit deeper in the regions, on the local level, we definitely understand that all the accession is done by the clear projects, which is done on the regional level, on the local level. So here we can definitely use the Danube region as the opportunity for cooperation in between regions, in between cities, municipalities, and whatever. And here I probably will come back to Harald, who also said about this very briefly about the Mayors Forum, which was initiated by Austrian presidency. This was indeed a very nice approach towards the lower cooperation, lower level cooperation, but this lower level cooperation always shows very good results. So if we do think about any kind of the business cooperation, investments, any kind of the municipalities cooperation, we definitely are going to the lower level in Austria, in other countries of the Danube region, and we can here start already any kind of the negotiations, any kind of the discussions about the recovery process, about the resilience. This is the very practical instruments which can show how the general accession process is going on. On the level of the ministries, of course, the legislation alignment, different procedures, of course, they exist. Of course, we are doing this, but we really need to concentrate very much on the level which in negotiations sometimes we really forgot, and it's one of the issues which works very, very nice, the cooperation between the municipalities. If we talk about the how Danube region and really how our community of the Danube region can focus on the recovery and reconstruction, I fully agree about the very clear movements towards the business cooperation, because here in Ukraine we definitely have a lot of things which can be aligned, which can be built within the added value chains in the European Union and abroad. So for us, this is something which we can definitely think about the economic domains priorities, and we are doing now. The smart specialization strategy is one of the issues which is very tackled for the economic development and really innovative economic development in the European Union. And for us, this is very important also to do this in sense of the cooperation within the Danube strategy. We have the special priority in the Danube strategy, which is dealing with the topic. This is priority area 7. And of course, if we are discussing the full cooperation with the business, this is priority area 8. So in this sense, we definitely see here very clear parallels in between the cooperation between priorities in the Danube region and, of course, the reconstruction and recovery process in Ukraine, and resilience at the end, the resilience in the whole region.
Thank you very much for this very concrete and clear exposition of how this can be linked and on your needs. Ionela, please.
I will add on top of what was already mentioned that, of course, when we are thinking about the resilience of the region, we also have to think about the support for strengthening the critical infrastructure in the region, because there are lessons learned that we can find both from the Russian hybrid attacks in the Baltic Sea, but also some of them in the Black Sea. And here I add the need that in the future we have, and when we'll update this strategy, we have to make sure that there will be a focus on deepening and widening the Danube's navigation channels, to build new locks and new canals, to modernize the port facility, especially on our part of the lower Danube, which is the less developed one. And with the purpose of enhancing security, of course, the European Union, since it creates its defense pillar and have this stronger approach to security and defense in the region, should think about establishing EU hybrid threat monitoring and defense mechanism for this Danube Black Sea corridor area, which is, the one who is closest to the Black Sea, which is now theater of war, and which will remain remain critical in the upcoming months, years, since we are seeing that for the moment we don't have a ceasefire in Ukraine. We know that Russia has a maximalist policy. They want to maintain control over Crimea. They want to take control over all the southern part of Ukraine, so basically to close Ukraine link to the Black Sea. So basically we have to think in mind that Russia will continue with its Novorossiya strategy in the future, and how that will affect basically the Danube, because as I mentioned before, one of the priorities of the Russian strategy is to have also control of the Danube mouth in the Black Sea, and in order to destabilize not only Ukraine, Moldova, but also Romania, with, of course, dire consequences for the security of the region, of the European Union, and in NATO as well. So I believe that we need to, at EU level, to work less in silos and to work more in having these comprehensive, holistic approaches, and to see the interdependencies and interlinkages between different policies. Of course, one of that, as I mentioned, it's the reform of the Danube Commission, in order to make sure that it aligns now with the EU and NATO strategic goal for the region, and also, of course, to make sure that the Danube will remain an area of free navigation, and the Danube mounts will remain an area of security, since it was one of the most unstable areas, you know, in our part of the region. So I will stop here, but yes, if you have other questions for me.
Thank you very much. Ulrich, you have the floor.
Yeah, I will. Well, many things have already been said, but I would like to come back on two things. So first, the European political community that was set up by Emmanuel Macron 2-3 years ago, and also about the European integration and how maybe the Danube region can help countries to integrate the EU. I think regarding the political European political community, I think the idea here was to be pragmatic. In order, because, well, let's take, for instance, the Black Sea. It's quite clear that Turkey won't enter the EU anytime soon. That being said, Turkey is definitely a key component in the Black Sea security. And I think addressing this kind of issues, core issues, actually with countries like Turkey, which are unavoidable if you want to address security in the Black Sea, is definitely, I think we have to be pragmatic and propose them some kind of new format to discuss some specific topics in order so that it could benefit them and us also at the same time. So I think this is really pragmatic and project driven, is something that should really be proposed to all the countries in the region. That's first thing. And I think it also comes back to the European integration. I think Nadia talked a little bit about this, but having forums where you can have project-driven discussions between municipalities, rayon, so regions and stuff, this is something that would really help connect the communities together. And I think this could be also really helpful for countries like Ukraine, Moldova that will integrate the EU at some point. But we can, instead of waiting many years, let's say, so that the countries really enter the EU, we should already start. And this is something that France is already doing with some places like Chernihiv in Ukraine. So really build up linkage between the communities so that it could really help actually fasten the integration and help also the reconstruction, for instance, of Ukraine. And last thing, I think also regarding the European integration, I think that one of the maybe we forgot, let's say it like this, we forgot that the European integration is not about, of course it is a little bit about respecting norms and bureaucracy and stuff, but basically this was not the core of it. The core of it was sharing, let's say, values. It was about geopolitics, the interest of having the family back together, so to say, from the European perspective. And so we should keep that in mind and not bury things under bureaucracy. We should make it really concrete and propose actually pragmatic formats to all the countries that are supposed to be in our neighborhood, and try to bring them actually the closer to the EU as possible. Because if we don't, other countries, China, Russia, will try to sneak in and propose other alternatives, which would be a losing strategy on the long term for the EU.
Thank you very much, Ulrich. I think we have come to the end of our allotted time. I think we had a very rich discussion, which I think fulfilled the objectives which we set ourselves when we started out and said we wanted to discuss affirming European security in the region. I think it just showed how multifaceted it is. It shows basically that concrete cooperation, cross-border cooperation in many areas is very important, and it can contribute in a very big measure to the larger objectives. I think this was underlined both by having the statements of this year's presidency, last year's presidency, but also I think Nadia very much underlined sort of the need to focus on very concrete areas of cooperation. On the other hand, it's also very clear that February 2022 changed the whole perspective. And this meant that security concerns in a very acute way moved front and center to our concerns when we talk to the region. And I'm very grateful to Jonila also to point out that we are not talking only to a war of aggression against Ukraine. This is going way beyond. We are talking about hybrid warfare, which is affecting not only the region, but the whole of Europe. We are also very concretely, I think, faced with issues of freedom of navigation, concrete issues of the strategic presence of the European Union and security of the mouth of the Danube. We cannot discuss the Danube strategy and security in the Danube if we are not really linking it very concretely, immediately to the Black Sea. This has also an impact, as Ulrich, you mentioned very clearly also, on how we deal with other partners. Turkey is, of course, in a strategic central position. And finally, and this also came out in the discussion very clearly, that before February 22, the enlargement process was seen as a very important one, but it was not maybe seen as much as after February 22 as a strategic necessity, not something which is an option for the European Union, but something I think which is immediately and very clearly linked to Europe's security. So thank you very much. I think that I would finally simply say once again a word of gratitude to our partners, certainly IDM, our host, which has enabled that, but also our partners Eurocreative and IFRI in Paris. And I see that Sebastian has joined us, and maybe Sebastian, you would like to say a final word to close this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would just echo the words of gratitude. I think this was a very interesting and a very important discussion. It has received a certain dimension to it with a big question mark, because while we were discussing, Friedrich Merz has not been elected as Chancellor of Germany. He will not stand for election today again. So a simple majority in the third round would have been enough for him to get elected. He only got a simple majority, not an absolute majority. And we'll see how this continues and how this affects also security, not only in our region, but in Europe in general. But maybe this is an opportunity for another discussion. And I'm very much looking forward to continue this very important exchange. And also, again, from my side, a big thank you to our panelists, to the Austro-French Center for Rapprochement in Europe, our partners Eurocreative and IFRI, and of course also especially to the non-visible people that make these discussions happen and prepare it and enable it. Thank you very much, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you.